Okay, the past 2 weeks, I have been this. No joke. This has literally been me. But I think something has come up for Spyro 4. Let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and finally I got another Spyro 4 video. This one is a bit different from my other ones though, because there has been some actual official movement. In a previous video, I spoke about Spyro's trademarks over at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, or the USPTO. This is the website of the office that takes care of all the patents, trademarks, and registrations for copyright purposes. Basically, it's a website where you can look at trademarks to see its legal jargon. Don't worry though, I'll explain it as easy as possible. No need for a degree in copyright law to know what's going on. So, over at the USPTO's website, the Spyro trademarks had finally seen action. But it had seen action a lot sooner than I had expected. See, I mentioned this in a previous video, but how trademarks work is that if you apply for a mark, you then have to show proof that you're going to actually use that mark, meaning that you literally have to show the trademark office something to prove that you're actually going to use it. This is called a statement of use. This is meant to deter people from filing mass trademarks and doing nothing with them and causing people to actually have to purchase it from them at exorbitant prices. So, Activision back in November 2018 had filed new marks for Spyro, covering a whole range of products, from merch to an actual game itself. Now, this is typical for game companies to keep creative avenues open, but if you apply for a mark or marks and don't provide statement of use within a certain amount of time, the mark is considered dead. However, if you still intend to use that mark, or you want to keep that creative avenue open and it's approaching its expiry and you don't have your statement of use ready, you can ask and pay for an extension. You can extend and push back showing the statement of use up to 5 times. Now, like I said, each time you ask for an extension, it does cost money. And every time these specific Spyro marks came close to expiring, Activision paid to extend them. Last time we looked at these marks, they were on their 4th extension and almost hitting the time for their 5th. Which means that if Activision did not provide proof of use by then, they would either have to pay more money for a 5th and last extension, or the marks would die. Now, that doesn't mean the Spyro trademark as a whole would die, but this specific mark would. So, like I mentioned before, Activision shelling out the money every time for a mark shows that they are still interested in the Spyro IP in some way, shape, or form. Okay, great. So, why am I talking about the Spyro mark again? Has something changed? Yes, something huge has. Remember how I said that a mark can only be claimed if statement of use was provided? Well, according to the official USPTO site, multiple Spyro marks have been registered and fulfilled. Take a look. According to the site itself, in November of 2021, the USPTO received a statement of use, which is what we want to see. And on January 25th, 2022, it was accepted and the mark was registered. Once again, that means Activision has provided proof of use to the USPTO and they have accepted it as evidence and registered the mark. This has to be it, right? This is the evidence to suggest that we will be receiving a brand new Spyro game. Well, hang on. There's a bit more to explain here. When a mark is registered and ready to go, there is a public image that shows evidence of the actual mark. This is called the Specimen of Use. Basically, it's an example image to both provide proof and an example of what that mark will be fulfilling. And it just so happens that these Spyro marks have a specimen of use. So we have a public image. So let's take a look at... Spyro Reignited? Is that what this mark was for? Spyro Reignited? But Why would they take this long to say that's what it was for? It turns out that, yeah, they can do this. It turns out they can delay the statement of use on marks of old content and then claim it later. So when I first saw this image, I felt pretty crushed. It didn't make any sort of sense though. Why would it be set for Spyro Reignited, a game that came out almost 4 years ago? That doesn't make sense. I sat and thought about this for a while. Why would they file something in November of 2018, wait 4 years, paying for all those extensions in between, only to turn around and say, yeah, it was for Spyro Reignited? So a month later, I looked at the marks that got approved again, and something jumped out at me. Remember, when you register a mark, you have to claim what its intended use was going to be. The first mark was labeled as computer game cartridges, computer game discs, computer game software downloadable from Global Computer Network. Okay, that's easy. That's the actual game trademark. But there was another one that said game services provided online from a computer network, namely providing online computer games. Now, I thought at the time, wait, Spyro Reignited doesn't have online play, and I came up with an idea. Now, before I tell you this idea, I found out later on that this trademark actually was for the Spyro website, but still, my idea did find results. I decided to go and check on the Crash Bandicoot trademark. I wanted to look at the history of Crash Bandicoot's mark leading up to the reveal and release of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, to see if it was at all similar to Spyro's mark. It turns out it's almost identical so far. While Spyro was on his 4th extension, this specific Crash Bandicoot mark was on its 5th and last extension, meaning that Activision had 7 months from that last extension to show the USPTO that they were going to use the mark. And 6 months and change later, talk about cutting it close, they provided a statement of use. Then, 1 month later, on June 9th, 2020, the mark was registered and ready to go. And, if you remember, Crash Bandicoot 4 was announced less than 2 weeks later after it was registered. So, if you've been watching, this is literally identical to Spyro's updated marks. Okay, sure, this seems all fine and dandy, but Spyro's Specimen of Use was Spyro Reignited. It doesn't really matter if it's similar to the Crash mark. Oh, but it is. See, I decided to take a look at Crash Bandicoot's Specimen of Use, specifically the one submitted on April 30th, 2020, about 2 months before the announcement of Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. And lo and behold, the image that they used was, yes, an Amazon listing page of Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. But that's when it all kinda hit me. Crash Bandicoot 4 was announced 2 months later after they showed their statement of use, but the specimen was Crash Insane. The reason being is because if they shared an actual image from the project, they would be leaking it themselves and anyone with a computer could discover what they were working on before they even announced it. So, to keep the announcement secret, they used a stand-in specimen of use to not spoil what was going on behind the scenes. This leads me to believe that it's possible that the exact same thing is happening to Spyro. It seems that an old saying seems to be ringing through. Whatever happens to Crash, happens to Spyro. At least in the trademark area. The last thing I want to debunk. If you look at the Spyro trademark and scroll to the bottom, you can see that this trademark was submitted the day Spyro Reignited came out. Some will argue and say, well, if this mark was submitted on the day Spyro Reignited Trilogy was released, and the Specimen of Use was Spyro Reignited, then that's what this mark is for. But I don't think so. See, each time you ask for an extension, it costs money. Why would you keep extending a mark for something that is already done? On top of that, when you ask for an extension, you have to give a reason as to why you want that extension. According to the USPTO, Activision claimed that the reason for all the extensions for Spyro was because the product or service needed research or development. Why would you need to develop and research a product that's already done and released to the public? It doesn't make sense. And finally, the exact same thing happened for this Crash Bandicoot mark. The mark was applied around the time Crash Bandicoot Insane was announced. Activision paid for 5 extensions, saying once again for each extension that the product or service needed research or development, registered it in 2020, and a short time later presented Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, all to the public. Now, what I'm about to talk about stems more into unknown territory. While I felt very confident in what I just talked about, this is where I enter more murky waters. So let me just start with that. So originally, I mentally put the next Spyro title to be releasing in 2023. In fact, I had a whole video dedicated to this idea, but there's something that I do gotta mention that does suggest that it could be sooner than 2023. So when Crash Bandicoot's Statement of Use was registered, it wasn't long till Crash Bandicoot 4 was announced. Now, with Spyro's trademark registering in January, it's possible we could see him this year. Now again, this is not strong evidence, but just something interesting. Now, remember, Spyro Reignited was announced in April of 2018 at PAX East, and it just so happens that PAX East 2022 is in April this year as well. On top of that, U2's last year teased this Spyro render for a new piece of merch that they would be releasing. Then, earlier this year, we got an alert to say that there is a new upcoming Spyro U2's line that will be releasing in April of this year. Then, as I was typing the script, Stuart Copeland, yes, the Stuart Copeland, the composer of the original Spyro trilogy and who assisted in Spyro Reignited trilogy, announced that he would be releasing Spyro tracks on Spotify in, yes, you guessed it, April. Another point I want to add is that Spyro's marks were on their 4th extension. They could have decided to extend it one more time before showing a Statement of Use, which would have given them 7 more months. Heck, the Crash Bandicoot mark was on its 5th extension and literally ran it down to where they only had a couple days left before the mark expired. Yet, they decided to show the USPTO the Statement of Use without the 5th extension. The timing seems interesting and possibly deliberate. It's possible they claimed a Statement of Use now because it might be coming sooner than we think. But again, I'm not so confident in that. I don't want people to think that I'm saying with confidence that we would be seeing Spyro this year in 2020 at all. But it is interesting that a lot of Spyro content seems to be lining up with the month of April, or in fact, just in 2022 in general. I originally bet 2023, but now I'm not so sure. The only thing that I feel more confident about though is Spyro making a comeback once more. Make sure to stay tuned as I dig more and search into the possibility of a new Spyro sequel. Thank you so much to all those who not only support the channel, but myself and my family. Because of your contributions, I'm able to do this full time. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider clicking the join button or becoming a Patreon with the link in the description. I also live stream every Thursday and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on by and say hi. Again, thank you to everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video and or live stream.